Hello and welcome back to the Keep Right On podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by BBC Radio WM's Blues reporter and sports editor Richard Wilford today. We're going to go through a little bit on Preston, a few reflections. Obviously, it is old news now. Looking ahead at the open house chat on Wednesday, we'll talk briefly about that. Then we'll get Richard's thoughts on the season so far before looking ahead to another big away day this weekend against Bristol City. Richard, thank you for coming on. And how are you doing after a really, really good Blues away win in midweek?
No, it's always good. I mean, I always wonder when I'm on just how many people turned you down to get me here, but that's neither here nor there. But no, look, we had a good trip. You were on the journey there and back as well, and we were enjoying ourselves. The music was blaring loud. That's usually a good sign. And genuinely, there are few better results in football than 1-0 away from home. It's hard to explain. Maybe Blues could have won 2 or 3 with the chances they had, but 1-0 felt very, very satisfying, particularly with the aerial bombardment they were under. So yeah, I mean, that was smiling all the way home, even with the M6 closed for 2 junctions. Tremendous.
Richard, you're always backed by popular demand. The aerial bombardment you mentioned, 2 players in question for Blues did very, very well to repel all that danger. Christoph Clara and, of course, Phil Neumann, who came back into the 11 for the first time in 6 games. How impressed were you with that partnership? And does that I mean, now it goes without saying that it has to kind of work going forwards, given what's happened with Jack Robinson and also Aaron Cashin?
Yeah, it has to be given a proper run now until maybe Clara is suspended, because he's a couple of yellow cards away from that. It was really encouraging, and that was the first game where I was convinced that Neumann could use that physique, because he is, standing next to him to interview him, he's an impressively built fella, isn't he? He's 6'3", maybe a little bit more in truth, broad in the shoulder, and he's got a nice bit of pace, which is the thing that will help complement Christoph Clara. I can understand why Chris Davis broke it up for a while, in that I don't think Neumann had shown that physicality, but also it is a compromise for Christoph Clara to play on the left. I thought he looked more settled, partly because of the type of defender they were having to do, in fairness. Crosses, yeah, eyes light up, head it away. But I thought Neumann showed more than that. He's still a bit hesitant with the ball. I don't think he always knows what the out pass is or the simple passes to make. Got caught in possession a couple of times. But it felt like a real start to something better. Probably the first time he's played as well as he did on the opening night against Ipswich for me.
Yeah, no, agreed. 2 other players I want to come on to. Firstly, Tommy Doyle. There's been a lot of clamour for Tommy Doyle to play this season, hasn't there? He's in his 3rd start, 2nd in his preferred position as a number 6 in midfield. It felt like Doyle was tuned into Blues at Deepdale. Is that fair to say, do you think?
It was certainly his most convincing performance in the Blues shirt. He ran himself into the ground, which is what you got to do in that sort of position, and his conditioning will only get better and better. I thought his use of the ball was very, very good, moving it quickly from those deep areas. That's what you want. You want players who can play on the half turn. I thought his defensive positioning was better than we've seen in previous performances. So that was really encouraging. And I thought that when the counter-attack was on, he led it pretty well. I thought he got a bit quiet that 10 minutes before half-time when Bristol City were on top. Just needed him to show a bit of personality there, break something up. But that's part of what he's going to learn. Again, I can understand why he hasn't necessarily had as much football as some Blues fans would have wanted. But what you've now seen is he's taking the steps that are giving him a great chance of playing regularly. And I know we'll go on to talk about it probably in 15 minutes' time. But I would be surprised, therefore, if he doesn't start at Ashton Gate as well.
Yeah, agreed. Another player I want to talk about, because you always criticise me for not being a big enough fan of this player.
It's not that you're not a big enough fan. It's that you don't like it. You're a Cochran hater. I know where you're going here.
So yeah. I mean, I would say that was Cochran's comfortably his best performance in the Championship so far. You know what? I would throw it back to last season. So I didn't see him have that many games of that level where he had a huge impact going forward, but married that up with the defensive work we've become accustomed to. So let's throw some praise on Alex Cochran, because I thought he was excellent against Preston.
Does it stick in your craw? Are you struggling? You choked slightly that you had to say that. Look, it was his coming of age as a Championship defender. But not only, there were 2 sides to his game. First of it was helped by Patrick Roberts' withdrawal before kickoff, because Keshi Anderson, I don't think, in fact, I'm fairly certain, having spoken to Chris Davis yesterday, was not down to play on the left-hand side. But it brought their partnership back. There were 2 brilliantly weighted passes over the top down the left-hand side to send Keshi away that were a reminder of how good Alex Cochran's left foot is. and then the free kick, which was the perfect delivery, begging for Neumann to get a shoulder on it. But yeah, it was a beautiful ball into the penalty area. The other thing that really impressed me about Cochran, given the barrage of crosses that was coming in, there were two fantastic back post defensive headers that he won against bigger players. And that's not something that necessarily is his strength. If he can compete with taller players at the back post, that makes him an even more rounded left back. Blues have relied on him so much for the last 15 or 16 months. So I'm really glad when he has his day and he puts his hand up to shine. Last week, he was put up as the interviewee after the whole game. And before we spoke, I said to him, well, what have you done to deserve that? Why did you always get sent to speak to us when things haven't gone so well? So we did have a little bit of a laugh as he walked past after the game during the week, because, he played really, really well.
You mentioned it there, the relationship between Keshi Anderson and Alex Cochran. It worked so well last season, and football is all about relationships. Do you think now, going forward, we might see Keshi Anderson more back on the left and having to accommodate Demarai Gray elsewhere, or do you think that is Gray's position when he's fit and firing?
Well, we're going to have an argument later about where Keshi Anderson's going to play at Ashton Gate, but I think there are various factors there, because that out ball that he played down the left, Cochran, would also work for Lewis Kubas. It would also work for Demarai Gray. I don't think it matters too much which side Dimmy plays. I mean, often he's encouraged to push inside anyway. So, I'm sure Demarai plays against Bristol City, but I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think Keshi's very best football for Blues has generally been on the left-hand side. And although I thought he was excellent as a 10 when it was 11 against 11 in the game against Hull last weekend, I thought that's the best he's played as a 10, partly because it was that link up down the right-hand side with him, Roberts and Iwata.
Yeah, it's his intelligence, isn't it, with Keshi? He's so switched on upstairs.
Who'd have believed it, though, 2 years ago, that Keshi Anderson would be a player that when he's out of the squad, when he's injured, Blues miss him as much as anybody.
Yeah, incredible that he came in on trial, really, and had to prove himself in that way. He's been excellent for Blues in 2 years. So moving on to the open house on Wednesday, obviously a night for Tom Wagner and Nick Smith to showcase little bits of the sports quarter that they can show people, and to talk about some of its design. Some interesting points I want to pick out. The design of the stadium, they made it very clear that it's going to be football first, even though they do plan to use it for other events just as much as football matches. Obviously, that is music to everyone's ears, because you don't want to get a stadium that, doesn't hold an atmosphere, a football atmosphere. So that's a big, big thing. Tom Wagner says naming rights will, quote, go to the highest bidder, which is absolutely no surprise, similar to what Everton have done with the Hill Dickinson Stadium. I think that gets about £10 million per year. So Blues would obviously be foolish not to go down that route. There was a question for Craig Gardner and Chris Davies on the recruitment process. Obviously, that has been scrutinised quite heavily since a lot of the players that came in who haven't quite lived up to their billing and expectations. Gardner explained that it's very much data-led. AI is involved, that they're working with a machine, basically, and they throw all the characteristics, whatever they want out of a certain position into the machine. It comes back with 200 to 300 names. They then whittle it down to 5 who are affordable and realistic. And then that goes through to the transfer committee and Chris Davies. And obviously Chris Davies has the final say. And there was a very interesting question to finish the night that was put to Chris Davies about the rumours online of a bust-up between Phil Neumann and Christoph Clara. And Davies did clear it up that it didn't actually happen, but did put his money behind Christoph Clara, which is interesting.
Oh, yeah, it's not an even combat, is it, to be fair? I mean, Neumann would have reach. He'd definitely have the reach.
He's got size as well. Size as well, to be fair.
No, Clara's a unit, isn't he, in comparison? And I think that would be the case. Well, yeah, these things get air, don't they, these days? And people put stuff out. I've heard from a bloke, oh, well done. But somebody might say that masquerades as journalism. No. They certainly were getting on Tuesday. Let's be real about it. Reflecting on some of the things, I've got a challenge for us in a minute, because it fits in with one of those bits. But yeah, look, the football ground has got to be football first. All along, you get the feeling that the stadium that they hold in the highest esteem anywhere in the world is Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I would be surprised if there were not significant elements of that stadium involved in this project. And it is an extraordinary place. It's as good a place as I've ever watched football. Even if you sat quite high up, you feel relatively close. I don't know how they managed to do that there. But it is extraordinary, and I do feel that they will borrow from Spurs to some extent, Alex.
Yeah, there's going to be walls, isn't there? There's going to be, I think they said 2 walls, obviously like the Tottenham wall, and Dortmund have got that as well. An interesting point actually about the Tottenham Stadium, if Blues are looking to kind of recreate some of that. I heard Troy Deeney say, I think it was Troy Deeney who said that the stadium's almost too nice. Everyone loves going there. Everyone loves going to play there, hence why Tottenham's home form hasn't been that good. Do you feel like Blues have got to avoid that a little bit? Because it is going to be, a lovely new stadium that teams are probably going to enjoy coming to play at.
I think inevitably the way that modern football has gone, you're going to run that risk, not least because a significant proportion of a 62,000 crowd are going to be corporates and tourists. And as much as the most important thing as we view it, and when Martin O'Connor was with me for the BBC Radio WM Forum at Baines's a couple of weeks ago, 10 days ago, we said the key is that those fans who've been through thick and thin, and by Jove, there's been a lot of thin in the last 10 or 15 years, are rewarded, and they can get their season tickets or they can get their occasional tickets at a price that is affordable for the traditional Birmingham City fan, which I resolutely remain adamant are still blue collar more than anything else. There has to be a bit of both if you're going to fill 62,000, but it does mean the atmosphere will not be as intimidating as St Andrews, almost whatever you do with it. That's why a wall is really important, because Dortmund does have that level of intimidation. But, I think a great arena for a great football club in the future. This is what we're all dreaming of, isn't it, from that point of view? So we will see. I mean, the bits I've seen, so I haven't seen the whole thing. As usual, both Nick and Tom spoke brilliantly. For me, the thing about them is that, there's a bit of hype and there's a bit of tub thumping and there's a bit of brazenness, but you believe what they're promising and you never lose that belief in what they're promising. And I think that's a really tough challenge to pull off, to be honest. Yeah,
I think Tom Wanger suggested that you'll be able to see the new stadium. It'll be that big. You'll be able to see it from Broadway in the Cotswolds.
That was a little bit dubious. I don't know how high that hill was and how strong the binoculars are, but that was a little bit like the suggestion that you can see the Great Wall of China from space. You can't. It's just a wall. You can't. But nonetheless. Anyway, recruitment. I thought there was a useful process for us to go through, because and this isn't entirely about summer recruitment. Maybe you want us to talk more about that at the end. But I thought it would be really interesting to look at the team that played on the 4th of May, 2024, because that is less than 18 months ago. Victory over Norwich, but it was the day that Blues went down. And I thought, because you end up, when I come on, you end up asking me an awful lot of questions. And people say, well, that's great, but he's a boring bloke. Let's get Alex to answer some questions. So I thought I'd have a look at who played and who was involved. And you tell me in 3 windows whether Blues have upgraded or not over these people. Okay?
Yep.
It's a challenge. I'm going to start with the manager. The manager that day was Gary Rowett. Upgrade?
I quite like Rowett, but I think that the jury is obviously still out on Chris at championship level, isn't it? Whereas Rowett has had a decent body of work, finishing top 10 championship. So I think as a championship manager, I think Chris Davies would himself probably struggle to fight his own corner against Gary Rowett. However, for the direction Blues are going in and the football they want to play, it's obviously a no-brainer between Chris Davies and Gary Rowett, because they're completely different managers, completely different styles. And Chris Davies is new Blues, whereas Gary Rowett was very much old Blues.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? If you wanted to win a championship match tomorrow, you might say Gary Rowett. If you want to push Birmingham City forward, you might say Chris Davies, which I think you touched upon that really well. Goalkeeper was John Ruddy.
You know what? I'm probably going to say upgrade, even though it's a very, very small, window that we've seen Beadle for, because Beadle's ceiling is clearly so high. I was very impressed with him against Preston. I was really impressed when I watched him at Sheffield Wednesday, and he played a lot of games before turning 21 at this level. Ruddy, I think in his final season at Blues, there were doubts in my mind starting to creep in, and I don't think it's a massive surprise that he's kind of taken that step now to kind of go into the hybrid role between player coach at Newcastle.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with Beadle in the week. There was one moment he came out and hesitated a little bit, but I love his footwork. That Hannibal style free kick, the speed with which he got down to his post, it's because he got extra steps in. There were a couple of aerial balls that he did the same. So I'm feeling upgrade. At right back, Ethan Laird. Well, Ethan Laird is probably still the best right back at the club. That's where I am anyway.
Yeah. I was a little bit disappointed, to be honest, that Ethan didn't start the season at right back because I thought he deserved to based on the strength of last season.
So there we go. Well, so that's even. Centre backs, Sanderson and Bielik.
I thought Bielik was exceptional in those games that he played at centre-back in the Championship, to be honest. I know it's a different style of football, but I don't think Blues conceded many goals. Was it 3 or 4 clean sheets they finished with? So I'm going to go clear upgrade, Clara on Sanderson, and for me, jury's still out on Neumann and Bielik.
Okay. So what you're picking Clara with Sanderson or Clara with Bielik?
Clara over Sanderson. Oh, so we're going on partnerships upgrade.
So you would say Clara and Bielik are the two there.
The two that I would say at the moment, yeah.
That's interesting. Left back Lee Buchanan, obviously injured at the moment. Saw him at the training ground yesterday. We both did. He seemed to be in good spirits. He'd be desperate to get back. But it's an interesting one, Buchanan and Cochran, because obviously you've got no affection at all for Alex Cochran, have you? I think it's an Alex thing, isn't it? You don't think other people called Alex are valid.
The only Alex in the room, yeah.
Yeah.
Difficult one. I think body of work at Championship level, Buchanan, I thought was excellent in that season. I think he came second in the Players' Player of the Year vote, which I know was not difficult. But to be the only player, not as good as Jay Stansfield in that season was probably quite good. So for me, they're on a par. As Buchanan's still in the building, it's not really an upgrade or a downgrade, is it? Because he's still here. So I'm sitting on the fence. Yourself?
No, I think that's a fair fence to sit on, isn't it? I mean, obviously, I'm more of an Alex Cochran fan than you. It's not difficult, but I probably would take him. But Buchanan at his best is very good. Just he's gonna have to reprove himself, isn't he? Yeah. The two holders were Sunic and Peck. Peck, who scored in that game, of course.
Yes. So what are we going with now? Peck and Iwata as the most used pairing?
Yeah, well, they are his first choice pairing for sure.
Big upgrade, isn't it? I think Iwata does what Sunic did, but he's also miles better with the ball.
Yeah, he's a better player, isn't he? And I would say is that Peck this year is not yet an upgrade on Peck then. And I'd like to, for me, that's something that needs to improve. I think he's got better in the last 2 or 3 games, but I think we need to see more from him if Blues didn't kick on, but we will see. The 3 behind the striker, Keshi Anderson, of course, is still Keshi Anderson, so we have no issue there. The other 2 were Jordan James and Koji Miyoshi.
Are we going? Who are the alternatives? Damari Gray and.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can speak. You've got various to choose from, but have they upgraded in that position? Really, is the question. And the difficulty is, of course, with Jordan James, in that I don't think he necessarily fits in the system that Blues are currently playing. Certainly not the way that he did. Although, actually, I think he always wanted to be a 6. He would be quite interesting to see him in the current Blues system.
Yeah, as probably the 8, I think he'd be competing with Peck, wouldn't he? I like Jordan James in that position. I don't think I'd get him in this team as a 10, to be honest. I really like Miyoshi. I think Miyoshi gets a bit of a bad rap, to be honest, for that season because he got 6 goals, 6 assists in all competitions. I thought he did quite well. Yeah. It was just clear that Chris wanted to go down a different route. But I still think Patrick Roberts is an upgrade on Miyoshi.
Yeah, I mean, this week of all weeks is worth remembering a goal he scored at Bristol City, which was really good. But look, Damari Gray is an upgrade. I think Patrick Roberts has shown real signs of being an upgrade. I'm a bit of a Lewis Kumas fan, but he does need to prove it. Needed to take that chance on Tuesday, but we'll see. And striker is irrelevant because it's Jay Stansfield, except I would suggest this year's Jay Stansfield probably is an upgrade on the Jay Stansfield of 18 months ago because I think he's just getting better.
Yeah, he's more polished, isn't he? Definitely. I could see him. I mean, what did he get? 12 league goals last time in the Championship. I reckon he gets 15 this time. I think you made quite the claim.
I'm going higher.
Yeah,
I'm going higher. Yeah. I've set my spread at 19.5. I think he goes over. I really do. And look, they'll get some penalties. He's 2 for 2 from the penalty spot at the moment. But I think Blues have not yet lit the torch paper in terms of scoring goals. But I think they're starting to get there. Because I just think the attacking players have so much more quality than what we were seeing last time Blues were in the Championship. And I do wish they had another striking option because that's the way they are a little bit short. And that Linden is only ever going to be a great sub because I think he's a great sub, not a good sub, a great sub. And Kyogo, you just fear that it's not going to work out. But on the whole, I think what we're seeing there is the summer business and the last 3 windows has produced quite a few upgrades, but perhaps not as many as we would have hoped. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think so. They've obviously had a lot more money to spend than they had previously as well. So in some areas, I think maybe they could have done better. Some of the hits they've had have been huge with Awata, Clara, but maybe in a few of the other areas and attacking options in particular, I think maybe could have done better. There might have been better options. You're obviously looking at the two strikers, aren't you? Who've come from abroad and hoping that they will at some point really take off. One of them definitely needs to take off.
I mean, Dux may travel this week from what I was told, so that's possible. I mean, Kyogo, it's just, will he start scoring? I don't know. Outside chance that he gets a game tomorrow. We will see. And then Fujimoto, what's gone on there? In all seriousness, what's gone on there?
Yeah, that just, it kind of feels like, maybe they weren't aligned on that one because he's been signed, presumably because the data around him is very good, and Chris Davies has seen him on the training ground and clearly isn't quite fancying him, is he? So
no.
It's hard to see him getting a look in, to be honest.
I've taken it over, haven't I? Sorry, I've just started driving it now. It's outrageous, isn't it?
Yeah, come on my podcast and start driving it. So I'm gonna flip the tables and turn it back on you now. So a few questions for you because you haven't been on since the start of the season, have you? So
no. Nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted it, and that's fair. That's fair. I'll be back in February.
So are you content with the start Blues have made, Richard? 15 points from 11. I look back of championship starts Blues have had. The best one they had in recent years was obviously the one where John Eustace was in charge and got sacked at around this point when it was 18 points from 11. So 15 from 11 doesn't feel too shabby, does it? Even though they've had a difficult run of form.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly Chris Davies was fearful of doing so well because you would get sacked, and maybe that's it. And then they'd have brought in a manager to totally change the style of play, but with players who can't do it. Because that's the Blues tradition. It's the Blues way. And I'm slightly disappointed with the start to the season. It was frustrating, the performance against Hull last week, although there were signs of better things going forward. It's just the softness of a couple of the away performances. I know there were chances to equalise at Leicester before they got the second. And I know at Coventry, the sending off before half-time finished the game off, but Blues weren't great before it. We can't rewrite history. So the Stoke, Leicester and Coventry performances, I'm not saying they're games that they should be winning. They're all difficult away games. But those performances were really, really flat. Blackburn and Preston, the two away wins, very different. In that Blackburn, it wasn't a great performance until the last 20 minutes when they took over the game. But Tuesday was the sign of a club that is moving forward. And the sense of relief and joy after the final whistle, when the players and the coaching staff went to celebrate with the travelling fans, I thought it was a little bit elevated. I thought there was a little bit more to it. And I think there had probably been some concerns from Chris and the coaching staff about making sure that they do step in the right direction. And it turns the Bristol City game, if not entirely into a free hit, it does take a substantial amount of pressure off it, doesn't it?
Yeah. It felt like they needed a win on Tuesday, didn't it? So thankfully they got that. We've mentioned a lot of players doing that recruitment puzzle you just put together. Is there anyone that you think needs to do more? I think Kyogo's the obvious one. Whether he gets many chances to do more, we don't know. But is there any player that is a regular in this team that needs to be contributing more?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of them. I really do, because I think there are players who are playing below their level at the moment.
Yeah.
Peck is obviously one of them, and I love him to bits, and I would keep him in the team. But I do want to see him contributing more and using his ability to pick out a pass in the final third far more consistently. Encouraged that he had got a couple of shots away against Hull, one of which led to Jay's goal on the rebound. But I do want to see more from him. Absolutely want to see more from Bright Asai Samuel when he returns from suspension. I admire the fact that he played through the pain barrier because he clearly wasn't match fit for that game on Tuesday when he was thrown in at the deep end. But I want to see the Bright Asai Samuel from games 1, 2 and 3. Because we haven't seen him play like that since August. And he had the ability to get in behind and create problems. I thought he played really well at Blackburn, for instance. So I think I need to see more from him. And then the other absolutely obvious one is Kyogo. Again, nothing sums up the frustration with that fellow who's clearly got talent more than the way that he literally seemed to ghost. Not literally, it's the wrong word, but the way he ghosted between two Hull defenders when he came on last week. There was no space for the ball, let alone for him. He gets ball and himself through there and then jabs at it like he's never kicked a football before. It's got to get better for him. You need to create a tap in, anything that gets him going. But I believe he's got more quality than he's shown by a mile so far.
Yeah. Chris Davies has clearly got some faith in it will turn it around. Chris Davies himself, last season went probably about as good as he could have hoped for, ever dreamt about. Didn't really have a sticky patch today. I think the sticky patch last season was 8 points from 6 games, wasn't it? How do we feel he's dealt with it this season? Obviously, he's had his first bad spell, 1 win in 8 matches, 3 or 4 defeats in there as well. How do you think he's coped with the start to the championship season?
I think he's been all right. I think he's realistic about the fact that the championship is hard, and he's spoken to me about the fact that he felt he couldn't get a handle on League One, maybe 5 or 6 games in. He knows the Premier League, he knows the Scottish Premier League. He really hasn't got experience of the championship, certainly not in the last decade. And it is a learning curve. And the one thing that he will learn and the players learn is you get punished far more regularly because teams are better, they're stronger, they're quicker, they move the ball rapidly. So you've got to be better with the ball, you've got to be slicker. And it's not enough just to keep the ball and not create anything. So for me, it's a key is that he's learning. This is a fella, by the way, that if he wins at Bristol City, will chalk up his 50th first team win as the Birmingham City manager, which would be extraordinary because I think it's game 74 tomorrow. 50 wins in 74 games. I know a lot of them have been in League One. I know some of them were in the league trophy. But that is an extraordinary strike rate. And he's never going to keep up that pace this season. But I think we've got to accept that he was always going to have to learn this year.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Bristol City away then. They are currently 4th in the championship with 19 points. 2 defeats this season. Both have come at home against Oxford and Sheffield. Not Sheffield Wednesday. They must have been on my mind. It was actually QPR. Change of style under Gerhard Struber from Liam Manning last season. They've got the second most counter-attack goals in the league, and they don't necessarily dominate the ball as they did under Manning. I remember when the Blues played Manning. Was it Bristol around just after Boxing Day? Was it the game after Boxing Day on last time in the championship? And honestly, I was bored. There was a lot of passing it around, and it was very slow and a really, really boring game. So
were you playing games on your phone and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think you could have been. Was there even an attempt on target that game?
I'm not sure. Were you choosing patterns for new curtains?
yeah.
I've seen games like that.
Yeah, it was a bad one. How do we think Blues will line up, Richard? I've put an 11 down, and I was kind of
you were wrong as well.
Yeah, I was thank you. I was struggling over this morning. So Beadle plays in goal. Neumann, Clara, Cochran pick themselves at the back. It's likely Tomoki Iwata will play at right back again.
Bound to be, yeah.
Then you move into midfield. Mark Leonard and Tommy Doyle I've got.
No.
Keshi Anderson right. No. Peck in the 10 again. Gray left and Stansfield up front.
Shall I tell you why you're wrong?
Go on.
Blues have got 4 central midfielders.
You need to have one on the bench.
You have to have starters and finishers. At least one of them has to be on the bench. You see that now I say it. Now I say it, it's obvious, isn't it?
No. Which is
because you're left with a horrendously thin bench otherwise. You really would. You've got to leave something on the bench to be able to change whether it's central midfield. There's got to be that little bit of flexibility. So therefore, the choice is, does Leonard play or does Doyle play? Because Peck will play midfield as a holder. So I would say that Doyle has earned the right to play again and that Leonard will be off the bench again. And I thought he did really well when he came on as well. He put himself around. He got a yellow card. Don't mind that. He dug in and did the things that he did. And also he's quite good in the tail end of the game because he's got the energy to get forward. He's getting better at playing on the half turn. So I think Leonard is the player who misses out there. The interesting thing is who then comes into the 3 behind the striker. Patrick Roberts, if he is fit to be involved at all, is unlikely to be fit to start. So I suspect Lewis Kumas might play again. So we'll see. Gray certainly is going to come back into the side, and that would make Anderson the 10. He has the slight option of going Stansfield 10 and Kyogo striker. I doubt he'll do that, but he could even bring Lyndon Dykes back into the starting lineup. Not inconceivable. But I don't think he has his 4 main central midfielders all starting the game in those various different positions.
Yeah, Dykes an interesting one because the Bristol City are quite a physical team. They've scored, I think, a few goals from set pieces. They've got, obviously, Viner. They've got Emil Rees as well as the centre-backs. They play 3 centre-backs. So they've got options there physically. It's whether, Blues want to go into this game again with just the two big players or whether he wants to bring someone else in a Dykes.
But also, they can have quite a lot of the ball. In the Bristol City, and Chris Davis talked to me about this yesterday, they don't want it. I'm not naming names. Some call them the Walsall of the Championship. and so it's not about the possession, it's about what they do with it. All the 3 goals they scored against Southampton in midweek were effectively on the break. Great finishes from Mehmeti and then Twine twice. So, yeah, they are quite happy not to have the ball. The danger then is the counter-attack. And the one concern you would have in the absence of a fully fledged right-back is that Iwata's pace will be challenged a little bit. And, you can say, well, maybe start Alphonse Samsted, but he's no quicker. So I think, Iwata is almost certainly going to play there. And what was really interesting against Hull when Blues had a lot of the ball is how much Iwata inverted from that position. So he will play as an inverted player on that side, and that might dictate who plays on the right further up the field. It may be that Gray goes right and Kumas left. That's if Kumas plays.
Richard, my bet on Blues having all the ball is why I've gone Vicente Del Bosque and played 4 central midfield players so they can completely dominate it and take care of it. But I do get your point. Maybe a Kumas. Obviously, could Robert start? Could he be fit to start? I think I'd be inclined to play him if he is fit. Surely he can't have lost that much fitness in 3-4 days.
Oh, yeah, he wouldn't have lost any match fitness. It's just a question of what it was that he tweaked. We're assuming calf, aren't we? Are we assuming calf?
I think we're assuming. The person I was told about it by said suggested he was holding his calf. Yeah.
I mean, Chris Davis isn't big on giving us accurate anatomy on injuries. No. He's got a knock where. In training. I mean, you know what I mean? It doesn't help. It doesn't help.
No. But anyway, hopefully Patrick Roberts is ready to play because he has been one of the most influential forward players of Blues over the last few games. Richard, I think that just about wraps it up. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for bringing the recruitment puzzle to the party as well. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Support Alex Cochran.
Yeah, the Alex Cochran fan club as well. Thank you. You're always welcome here. Thank you, everyone. A big keep right on.